Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over all the Gems of War event objectives for the week, and we have some pretty big ones. We might be getting version 7.0 tomorrow, or at least pretty soon, and a few other pretty juicy things. But you might be noticing we're starting on a bit of a weirder screen right now, mostly because there's a new legend in the event key drop table, and I'm having trouble getting it. But you know what I'm not having trouble with? I got double of the mythic that I don't even need. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, there's a new legend in the drop table right now. Supposedly, I can't find it. It does not want to drop. I'm literally getting double of the mythic before I'm actually finding this thing. It is in drop table, right? This thing does exist. Hello? 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 Am I just being trolled? There it is! Thank you! Wow! Why is this thing rarer than double mythic? Well, there we go. Double, Garion. Anyways, while we're here, might as well go over him. So, this guy is an event key drop table this week, supposedly. Took like 1,000 keys somehow. He converts greens he's basically a double converter. He's actually 20 mana cost, but he gets a lot of explosion. So he gets to convert greens to blue gems. And more noteworthy, he converts all purple gems to doomskulls, which of course are 5 damage and explode, and also ends up doing a little bit of drain to all enemies. So basically a double converter with a small mini drain. Honestly, pretty good. Has a lot of potential. As far as its traits, it gets to start with Doomstorm. Would be slightly better if it got Doomstorm upon kill, but start with Doomstorm's okay as well. And it also gets to stun every extra turn. It also gets a poison, but that's very rarely going to get used. It's primarily going to be used for that stun aspect. So honestly, not that bad at all. Though took me way too many keys to go and get. Anyways, let's go over all the things for the Sandy Paws event, in which the Sand Cat is added to the game, as well as the mythic we just went over. Or sorry, legend. Sure feels like a mythic with how rare it is. But it shouldn't actually be that rare. We just got really absurdly unlucky / lucky. Anyways, Sand Cat. As far as what it does, it's not bad, but there's already troops that do this better. It ends up creating a bunch of yellow, inconsistent number, but a pretty sizable number, 8 to 12. For its mana cost, that's actually pretty good. And then it gives a bunch of armor to an ally. Overall, not really worth it. There's not too many things that utilize yellow that really need an armor buff for the most part. Obviously, just things like Guard's Avatar, but he already has a pretty solid team that doesn't really need something like this on it. But it's okay. It's very rarely going to get used. Maybe there'll be some kind of armor synergy with it in the future with something that uses yellow. But as it stands right now, it's a very small niche that probably won't be used other than like an arena or something. Does get to start with Lightstorm, does get to have a little bit of dodge, so not horrible, just very situational as to when you'd bring it out. And there's already a lot of things like this, like Quetzalma as a mythic, that are just generally going to be used more often, as their follow-up is way better, having like a ton of damage rather than just a little bit of armor. So it's not horrible, just very situational as to when you would end up bringing it out. So this is the thing for the thing. Anyways, with that being said, as far as the event key drop table is concerned, well, we already got to see some of it. And supposedly the legend is a 3.2% chance, but keep in mind is competing with a lot of other legends within that drop table. As far as the actual drop table itself, as far as things that are available, of course, we do have, so let's start from the things that are not available. So the things that you cannot get in the event key drop table include the 4 City of Thieves troops, and I believe that is actually it. Oh, sorry, and the Emperor. Emperor is actually pretty noteworthy. He is not in event key drop table. He's from Vault Keys. However, it's basically Empress, but for half as much value, but you get to do it onto your first ally rather than your last. Empress is generally better as the bonus is twice as high, but it does go to your last position, meaning it's going to be mana blocked, so this could be good if you want your first slot to have a lot of this buff. So it's a great alternative to that. As far as also, Leonis Tower is not in drop table. This is only in Soulforge. So to recap, Leonis Tower, which is in Soulforge, Emperor, which is in Volkeys, and of course the 4 faction troops, which are from the faction. Everything else you see here is in drop table. Most noteworthy things are the new Garion. This thing's actually pretty decent. Has a nice double convert. We kind of just went over it. But as the Doomskull spam, has that small little mana drain, which, 2 doesn't sound like a lot. But even just 1 mana drain to get them off a full is quite a lot if they don't have immune. So, and the fact that he has stun, they're generally not going to have immune. Because even if they have immune, most things that have immune are stunnable. So you'll be able to stun them and then just get the mana drain. So there's a lot of potential to be pretty good. Aside from that, the main things that you're really looking for are like Divine Ishbala for the mana start. Unfortunately, it's only 40%, not 50%, but still pretty strong. If you want to try for the Mythics, of course, we got 2 Deo there. However, Voice of Orpheus is a nice utility troop to have. For the most part, all 3 of these are pretty underwhelming, but the strongest of them is Voice of Orpheus if you want to try your RNG. Though, of course, you can go thousands of keys without getting it. So do be wary of that. So overall, I would say it's a pretty skippable week on event keys. Getting your Tagraki upgrade, I guess, could be okay if you do not currently have a max Tagraki, which might be worth looking into as a lot of bounty hunters are centered heavily around it. That's a low rarity thing you can already just be getting from gold keys, glory keys, stuff like that. You don't necessarily need to wait for an event like this. And there are things like Khorvash with its stun and mana drain, but overall, it's just not particularly powerful. At least these days. It used to be back in the day. These days, there's just better options out there for true damage and or stun, so particularly elementals in the stun department with all the extra effects that it has. So it doesn't see much usage in the current state of the game, though we are going to be having to use it for the trial event that we have going on. And also, this doesn't have the star level at all. I believe it's at like 28 star or something right now. However, of course, it is one of many, many kingdoms currently blocked out at the moment, where it is not really worth upgrading it past where it currently is. So, yeah, it's in that kind of whole category of kingdoms at the moment. Anyways, as far as things going on this week, as I mentioned, we do potentially have a patch coming out tomorrow. Not confirmed, but very likely date. One thing that's even more of a reason why it might happen tomorrow, too, is they actually canceled the Adana trials that we were going to have, or whatever they're called, the Legends Reborn. So we were supposed to have a Legends Reborn for Adana today, but they ended up shifting it back. I believe because they might need to have the patch out before, you know, they could do the event. And since the patch is currently not out, and probably will be potentially this week, potentially tomorrow, so they had to push it back like a couple weeks, probably sometime later this month, 2 or 3 weeks from now. We don't really know the exact date yet. But the Adana thing did get moved back. It has a pretty few relevant ones. It's going to be bringing in a Bork upgrade, so that gets 5 more Destroy whenever it does its mass mana accumulation, making it potentially better than Thrall in some situations, particularly in mech-based teams. Tina 9000 is going to get more damage. That benefits from all of its stats. And of course, Tesla, which is already strong, is going to be getting more stats. So it's going to be a really, really good Legends Reborn event. But it did get delayed by at least a week, if not multiple weeks, as it probably needs the 7.0 patch to be out before they can actually do it. Anyways, aside from that, other things that we do have going on, we do have a Tower of Doom, and it seems like when they do the next patch, these might be happening more often, which is nice, because you know what we have this time around? A new Doom weapon. So, in the current state of the game, they occur about once every 11 weeks. This might change next patch. However, as it currently stands, they're about once every 11 weeks, and they used to be once every 4 weeks back in the day. And due to this, we very rarely get new Doom weapon cycles. It's generally once every year and a half in the current state of the game. And we finally got a new one, the Doomed Rings. As they will probably be called, as they're all ring-shaped. Obviously, they'll have a different name of Doom something. This one being the Doomed Promise, but you know, all the rings. Unfortunately, the rings, not that good. They have an interesting premise. I just don't feel like they'll have much of a use case. They end up giving 2 magic to all allies, plus 1 per tempering level, basically meaning it's plus 12 magic to all allies, assuming you max it out. And you would definitely not ever use this without it being maxed. And if you don't have it maxed, you would just never use it to begin with, because it wouldn't be worth it. But yeah, one of its main gimmicks is that this potentially gives you up to 48 magic across your entire team. Which, you know, that's not horrible. Generally giving it all focus, like with Emperor, or Empress, I should say, is a little bit better. So, generally just doing off the Empress is probably a better idea in most situations. But this could be a way to kind of just wide buff your team. One other thing that's interesting is specifically the color corresponding to the ring, in this case, yellow. It'll give a bunch of armor to those allies, so in this case, yellow allies. This might have potential on things that have good boost ratios. One that's particularly noteworthy is blue, because we have things like Tesla, Rowan, stuff like that. Brown might get a little bit of usage there due to the armor synergies that it has. But overall, it depends heavily on the color on if these will be viable or not. I personally feel like yellow doesn't have too many. The main one that I can think of is what, Guard's Avatar. One of the better options overall as far as value for it. But for the most part, I pretty much will never really be using these rings. I'm not even sure if I want to even upgrade them initially. They just don't seem like they do enough. There's already better ways to gain magic, particularly if you want to do it to only one target. This does have a wide farm, but very rarely are you gaining benefit from it, because you'll have to, you know, individually cast every single one of them to be able to get their value multiple times. Compared to just if you put it all on one, you can just multicast that one singular troop and get the full value every single time, rather than having the value distributed all over the place. So it's a little bit slower. And unless something comes in that has a really good armor magic boost ratio mix, as most things only boost ratio really well off of one or the other. Tesla is pretty notorious for not using magic at all. Rowan and Guard's Avatar, for example, do not use magic as well. They gain very little benefit from magic, despite still gaining a benefit from it, compared to how much of a benefit they gain for having additional armor. So if we ever get a troop that has really good double synergy into both, like Tina 9000 is kind of in that category. So that would be what, brown, red, green rings? We would be able to go into that, because it ends up utilizing its magic very well for true damage, and it utilizes its armor very well for skull damage, as well as durability to just not die. So if we ever get more troops like that that can utilize both the values pretty well, it'll probably get used. But as it currently stands, I see very, very little uses for these rings, to such a degree that if you're low on these resources, you should probably not upgrade a single one of these rings, and they'll be occurring over the next 6 Doom events. Well, technically the next 5, this one and then the next 5 after this. And they might be happening more often. It looks like some kind of change might be happening next patch. That will be making them happen every 5 to 6 weeks or so. Maybe once every 6 weeks, which is nice because they used to be once every 4 weeks and they were balanced around that. So hopefully it'll be making them a little bit more frequent than they were in the past. Anyways, as far as the event, it plays the same as always. You want to do fireballs, heroisms, all the other good ones. You normally want to report back to your guild what all of the better ones are. Just have some kind of denotation system. So you might want to find the haste, so you get a few more sigils in there. As you do basically profit sigils. Luckies give you like 2 extra doom, stuff like that. Anything that your guild wants to scout out for. But the 2 biggest ones being fireballs and heroisms, as fireballs lets you clear out any standard room later on. And heroisms allow you to just clear out the entire floor. Just head straight to there, though it doesn't take all the side rooms loots. But basically, you just want to communicate with your guild where all the better rooms are, have people scout in your guilds, and then only take the ones that are good. Because unlike Underworld, you use 1 sigil per battle, not 1 sigil per floor. So you want to minimize how many sigils you use every single floor to only take the ones that are worthwhile, and then just keep moving forward. And go as far as your guild has scouted, and then scout for your guild if you're the furthest person at that point. And that's pretty much how this event goes. Overall, requires the most amount of communication with your guild of any event. Though technically Guild Wars does as well, but this one literally requires it as, you need to know where those rooms are to be able to go through them. Anyways, aside from that, other things. So as far as weekly events are concerned, Tuesday we will hopefully be getting version 7.0, not confirmed, but very likely. So we'll have that potentially tomorrow, later tomorrow. We do have Guarantee tomorrow, City of Thieves faction. City of Thieves, pretty good farmable location, has a really good treasure room and multiplier layout. All the treasure rooms are 1 room away from the starting room, and it has a lot of 5 times tier 5 rooms that give you a lot of multiplier. Wednesday, we're just going to be getting the Leonis pet, nothing particularly special there. It's been out for a while. Thursday, we're going to be having the Clash Trials for the Warpriest. Warpriest pretty underwhelming, especially compared to Elementals. There's like, what, a 50% chance to stun 1 enemy per turn, whereas Elementals can infinitely stun, freeze, burn, entangle the entire enemy team in 0 turns. So, yeah, it's pretty irrelevant these days. So yeah, it just doesn't get used. It does have some human synergy, but the kingdom itself doesn't have enough good humans to justify using like a 4 times human team with it. So for the most part, it's pretty much just useless. It's among one of the weaker hero classes within the game. And then Friday, we're going to be having... Oh, did I even mention yet? We have a Vault event this weekend. But yeah, Vault event weekend this weekend. A great time to go farm, especially if we're getting the patch. And even if we're not, just preemptively get some resources for the patch. But if we are getting the patch this Tuesday, we'll know what resources we need. Obviously, they might add some new resources, but if any of the old resources are needed a ton, like let's say, like obviously gems might be, but let's say, for example, I don't know, sure, like diamonds. Well, you can farm diamonds during a Vault event weekend. Not to like an exceedingly high degree, but a better degree that you normally would be able to. So whatever resource we might need more of, we'll be able to do this weekend, so that'll be nice. So standard Vault event weekend then. Aside from that, as far as the Soulforge is concerned, I actually didn't even check this yet. Let me see. What do we have? Looking pretty bad so far. Uriali for the 4 times poison if you want it. Very situational, but good with Scourge of Honor. You're pretty situational. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything too good here. Unless I missed over one. Yeah, it looks like mythics are pretty skippable this week. As far as weapons are all Leonis Empire based, so if you need any of them for kingdom upgrades or anything like that. Aside from that, every single thing here is not particularly useful. We have the ones that do like rogue summon and stuff like that, so pure rogue teams. But there's already a pure rogue team that works a little bit better with Night Spider, though Night Spider has gotten nerfed ever since the purple gem thing. Yeah, nothing particularly noteworthy unless you're just getting some of the generic ones that have wide range, because this works for a pretty wide range of locations. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't this useless? Yeah, that's not the good explodey one. Yeah, this was just the one for humans. Pure human teams not used too often. It does create blue if you wanted that for, what's his name though? This does semi-synergize with Tesla into 50% mana start human. The only problem with this and that team is that it does physical damage and not true damage. It's the same issue that the undead weapon has, in that undeads are normally like pure true damage teams, but it does physical damage. This is pretty similar because one of the biggest human teams is hero weapon, double Tesla, 50% mana start human, with Tesla being blue and the human being yellow, which in theory this book would be really good for, but the fact it does physical makes it a lot less enticing, even though the mana accumulation is really good for that team. You're also forced to have to use human hero classes, and human hero classes not the greatest, as we see with the Warpriest that we have from this kingdom. So overall, honestly, just a really skippable Soulforge across the entire line, unless you're just getting some for cheap ones for like upgrading purposes, or just want to pick up like a nice utility one for the future, like the Rogue Explodey Dagger or something. As this is probably highest priority if you are going to go for one, I guess, as rogues are used occasionally. Biggest issue rogues have, I would say, as overall as a typing, is it just has very few mythics that are rogue. I believe there's like 2, 3 total mythics that are currently rogue. It's one of the lowest of any typings in the game, surprisingly, which does not bode well for their synergy, as there's very few things to synergize them with. One other thing that I haven't mentioned yet, that if you haven't already done, the Summer of Love event, while it has concluded, if you have not spent your points, you will have the rest of this week to go spend your points. You cannot earn any more points, but any points that you do have, you can spend, assuming there's anything within your range. Obviously, we have 101 right here, and there's nothing I can spend 101 on. But I would say the bigger priority ones are trying to get the pet up to the Golden Flower and Summer Armor, as these may never return. However, the Forenza and the Standard Pet will be in drop table in the future, so if there's anyone to skip, I would say skip Forenza, skip the Power Orb, and probably focus on Summer Armor and get up to a Golden Pet if you still have the points to do so if you haven't already. But if you don't have the points, it is impossible at this point to earn any more. Anyways, aside from that, I guess we start going... Oh yeah, they also did compensation. So of course, any of you that played Bounty Hunter, or not Bounty Hunter, yeah, Bounty Hunter. Any of you that played Bounty Hunter last weekend, it didn't feel like Bounty Hunter, but yeah, there was a bunch of ogres there. You saw what happened. Every single fight was 4 ogres. Honestly, it made it easier. That was almost a good change, not a bad one to a degree, as it made the event way easier. It made it a lot more repetitive, but it was substantially easier than normal, as ogre is a super easy enemy to kill. But yeah, they gave us some gem compensation. Not a lot, 20, but hey, more than nothing. But that was due to the whole issue that they had last weekend. Anyways, let's go over a bunch of teams. Oh, also, thank you for reminding me, enemy team. Mirthani's Darkness is still available in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest, by the way, until Friday reset time. So basically the end of Thursday. You have until, you can actually see it right here. For whatever reason, it doesn't have a timer. However, yeah, about 4 days left. Well, technically 3 days and some amount of hours. So, yeah, make sure to go and get that if you want. It's a pretty fun troop. We were messing with it a bunch. We covered a video on it last weekend. I enjoyed it a lot. We've been using it with skull spam teams, mostly with Eye of Argus. Actually, I think the team we were just looking at uses it with Eye of Argus as well. It's a really popular option, and if you need a cheaper one, you can do it with Great Worm with it. But yeah, Mirthani's Darkness into Eye of Argus was something that does a lot of skull damage up front. Really fun team. Definitely advise trying it out. Actually, the team that we did with it, not one of the teams we're showing for this. Oh no, I overrid it already. No. But it was a Web Spinner, Mirthani's Darkness, and double Eye of Argus. I don't have it saved right now because I overrid it for the teams we're going over right now. But yeah, it was a pretty fun team. And that's just another take on it that they're doing right over there. Anyways, because they probably only have 1 Eye of Argus, I would assume. We did go for 3 in case it was ever needed, and good thing we did, as it does have, double does have pretty good synergy with Mirthani's Darkness. Definitely not required, as you can see, he has a perfectly fine alternative. But it does help a little bit. Anyway, so as far as Dooms, you're restricted to yellow. However, you are allowed to use any colored weapon for the Dooms. So, for example, on this team, we have Black Manacle, which is brown and purple, which is not yellow. However, you are allowed to use any colored weapon without being penalized. So that's nice. As far as the upper team, we're going to be using a High King Iron Gut Wild King team. Essentially, we're just going for all in damage. We have High King Iron Gut with its high damage there. We have Bane of Mercy to go curse them, so we could apply insta-kill everything except for the Doom. Keep in mind, you cannot curse the Doom, you cannot devour the Doom. However, that's not going to be needed because Wild King is going to give you a ton of attack, a ton of skulls, a ton of yellow, and enrage. And the main goal is to devour the entire team with High King Iron Gut. You'll have like a gigantic attack stat. You then use your Wild King to give it skulls. You then kill out the Doom with that, and boom, dead. We have Wand here to use the excess mana. Oddly enough, this team is not only pure yellow, but also pure blue. I didn't intend for this initially, but it is what ended up happening with it. Obviously, it's just meant to be pure yellow for the current yellow restriction. But it is also pure blue, so technically you could use this exact same team for Blue Doom whenever that rolls around. And similar, you could even use these for Guild War if you really want to, though. There are some slightly better Guild War alternatives for Yellow and Blue Day, but it is an option if nothing else. But anyways, this gives a bunch of attack to your first ally, and does the curse thing, so that gives High King Iron Gut ready to go. You just skull spam this, go your mana accumulation, and Wand is just for the excess mana. For example, we're not using purple here, but you know, we are because Star uses everything. And we are blocking the Bane of Mercy because we only intend to cast this once, just to get High King Iron Gut rolling, and Marsa to get Wand of Stars rolling, oddly enough, as you are going to feed likely enough purple into your Wand of Stars to be able to cast it. That cast then gives High King Iron Gut and or Wild King full mana, and you kind of just go crazy from there the second you have Wild King to full mana, because that should be all the yellow you need to keep going. So yeah, this is pretty much the whole premise with this team. Should work out pretty nicely. Oh, we're also doing it with Corsair, so we actually have a +4 blue, +2 yellow going on here. Just to make it even easier to feed mana. We don't have any extra into purple, but it should be fine. Blue just because everything uses it, and yellow because you could do spamming it off of High King Iron Gut. You can also alternatively go like Priest class for the +4 yellow total if you wanted to. But we get more overall value from this, but we're not going to be taking blue as often, so you can do it either way. So for the lower range, it's basically just infinite Chalcedony. We're just running a billion Chalcedonies and spamming them. There's no penalty to using multiple of the same. There's also no penalty to dying on a troop. So basically the whole premise is we're running 4 constructs using the Geomancer hero class with Black Manacle and a billion Chalcedonies, and we just spam it until we win. That's pretty much the game plan if you need a lower rarity option. If you want a lower rarity option that goes, or if you have some of the higher rarity stuff, one thing that you can do to speed up this team is go with, gosh, what's his name? I can't remember his name right now. It's used so often. The, Ironhawk. But if you run with Ironhawk, this also counts as a construct and gives you 5 additional damage per extra turn. So you could put more and more Ironhawks behind your Chalcedony if you happen to have them, and that'll help speed up the team. You would put your Black Mana go up to 2nd and put a bunch of Ironhawks behind it. And you could do that to help speed up this team if you have it. This is obviously a mythic, so not really a low rarity team. But if you do have them, you would offset those, have the Black Mana go right there, have the Ironhawks behind it, and that would speed up your team ever so slightly by getting some AoE damage over and over again. So that's another alternative to end up making that work. A little bit more expensive, obviously, but it is one thing that is generally highly sought after, so it might be a little bit more likely that you have it laying around. Anyways, as far as the faction event this Tuesday, tomorrow, we have a yellow-blue restriction, so we can actually run pretty standard Rowan here. Or sorry, did I say yellow-blue? I mean blue-purple, my bad. It's a blue-purple restriction. So we could just run a pretty standard Rowan build here for the earlier range. For the higher range, also pretty standard team. That's one nice thing about City of Thieves. A lot of the more meta teams can all be ran here due to blue-purple. And we can run Hiking Iron God Zolgoth here. And obviously just using Thoral Leprechaun as our mana accumulation base. As far as the Pure faction is concerned, a little bit more annoying. Basically, by the final fight, you want to make sure you have 1 King of Thieves, Street Thief, and Tome Robber. As long as you have that, you should be good to go. And for that reason, it's generally worthwhile to have 2 King of Thieves. You only ever cast the first one. However, you have 2 in case the first one dies prior to the final fight. And basically, the whole premise is King of Thieves does a little bit of damage and gains a bunch to all of his skills, boosted by your gold. Street Thief ends up stealing a bunch of gold and creating a billion purples, or potentially a billion purples. And that helps mana accumulate your 2 useful troops, King of Thieves and Tome Robber. And Tome Robber is your main kill option. After you buffed your stats with King of Thieves, you will then go and Skull spam a bunch of times. And this is boosted based on how much gold you have, meaning she will consistently create 14. Alternatively, if you want to have a more offensive team, you actually want to double up on Tome Robber instead of doubling up on King of Thieves, making your team essentially the following, where it'd be King of Thieves, Street Thief, double Tome Robber. But it is a little bit safer to run it this way, which is why I'm showing it this way. But if you find you don't have enough offensive pressure, just double up on Tome Robber. You can theoretically even triple up on Tome Robber, though it might be a little bit annoying to get your initial gold if you do so. But it is definitely very possible because they have Extreme Greed, which every extra turn gives you a lot of gold. And you have, if I'm not mistaken, every single one of them has it. So you're actually getting 16 gold per extra turn on top of the gold you'd already be getting. So you're getting at minimum 20 gold every single extra turn. So you don't necessarily need Street Thief to go help with your gold. You can simply just go billion Tome Robbers, but this one's a little bit more balanced. It kind of covers all your bases, but you could run it either way. It really depends on how you feel like it's going, what your stats are, and how you want to run it. As if you have too low of stats, having double, triple Tome Robber can actually backfire a little, because you might be giving the enemy more damage pressure than you're helping yourself, but it also makes it more likely you can just keep extra turning onto them. As far as the Warpriest hero class, it is specifically Leonis Empire humans you'll be able to use. So either Dawnbringer, Summer's Fury, and just put a bunch of Falconers behind it. Falconer has half mana start, so you get it rolling quicker, has a bunch of red links, so you could feed into any kind of red weapon that hits all enemies. In this case, we're using a really cheap Summer's Fury, but you can use Dawnbringer or any other red weapon you wish that hits everything. It also has a resummon, Hunter's Mark, all that, so you can easily just kill them out if you need, but it's primarily being used for its red gem spam into its extra red mana, and should make the event pretty quick. And as far as Trials is okay this week. Not the easiest, not the hardest. I do feel like it's going to be on the easier side, though. Mainly because the biggest threat that you have is going to be Tigraki in second slots, and you have access to Khorvash, so you can just keep spamming the Khorvash up to that location. So as far as... Oh, so I forgot last stream to go do these few extra battles so we can get up to Starry fights, so we'll have to do that later. Anyways, so as far as this, is this even in right order? No, we want it in... Actually, there's a couple ways we could do it. You know what? Is that default order? That's actually not bad for default order. I do kind of want to mirror a little bit safer, though. But yeah, something like this. So default order is almost already correct then, pretty much. That's kind of nice. But anyways, we'll put it like that. Either or, honestly, both of them are kind of fine. The default's probably one of the stronger defaults we've seen in a while as far as actual order, initially. But basically, the only threat on the opposing team is Moneylender into Tigraki. Moneylender does a bunch of red, boosted by gold, and does have some extra ways of gaining gold. And then Tigraki, you should know Tigraki, good old bounty hunter we just had last weekend. But yeah, he has a really big boost ratio that will boost on all your armor and do true damage to you. Depending on where you are in the game and their stats, it will probably 2-shot you most of the time. Potentially 3-shot, though depending on your stats, potentially 1-shot as well. So he's by far the biggest threat, but you have access to Khorvash. The whole premise is just get Khorvash immediately, go and mana drain the Tigraki, and just keep doing that over and over again until you win. And you have access to double blue banner, which you can't change, so the whole premise is just keep getting Emperor Khorvash over and over again until you win. Falconer will be for resummon. You use it very similarly how you would for the class event, except even more so here because your troops might actually die, unlike the class event where it's very unlikely to occur. But you have the extra red mana that will feed into your reds. You have your red spam, you have your resummon, you have your Hunter's Mark, should be perfectly fine. Pride Guard, you're basically sacrificing. If you really want to, you could throw it onto their first slot and kill it out that way. Because you can kill that with skull damage. He does gain armor boost ratio across your entire team. He's kind of like Paladin, but instead of gaining armor only from himself, he gains armor from everyone on your team. So him becoming 0 armor only negates out 1/4 of his damage, about approximately as far as his boost ratio. Whereas if Paladin did the same, he would lose 100% of his armor boost ratio, whereas this only loses 1/4 of its armor boost ratio, as the rest of it comes from the other 3 troops on your team. So it makes him a little bit better of a first slot compared to Paladin and similar armor related options. So very rarely used, but in this context, it's actually not bad. You'll be able to kill the War Elephant with it, and just keep Khorvashing down to Tigraki. And Amira is mostly just for cleanup. It does get to do double damage to blue, but you're almost never going to utilize it for 2 reasons. One is they only have 1 blue, and the 1 blue they have is stealthied, so you'll use it at the end to do it as a finisher. To some degree, it would almost be better if your first slot is dead, because by then you won't be blocking a red. But then again, I guess you're summoning a red into first slot as well, so I guess you're always going to be blocking a red to some degree, unfortunately. But you're basically spamming true damage until you win. Just keep Khorvashing, Amira the Tigraki, and Khorvash the Tigraki. Let it die, and then there you have nothing left. War Elephant does basically nothing. Tigraki's their entire team. Moneylender feeds mana to Tigraki, and Corbin feeds gold to your money, or to the Moneylender, which feeds gold to the Tigraki. So it's kind of weird because it actually wants to be casting in like inverse order. It wants to be casting Corbin first, then Moneylender second, then Tigraki third. But its team order is the exact opposite, which makes it quite a bit easier. And honestly, Tigraki being in second slot instead of fourth is the main thing that's going to make this fight so easy, because you just Khorvash it over and over again. So long story short, spam Khorvash until you win. That's really all you need to know. Even though there's slightly more strategy to that, but if you just do that, you should be perfectly fine when it comes to that event. But anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for now. Unfortunately, they did end up canceling the Legends Reborn event this week, which I was kind of looking forward to, because we're getting quite a few good buffs. To Bork to make it more usable, Tesla to make it more broken, and Tina 9000 to make it, well, even more broken, I guess. Which would have been the biggest beneficiary of it. But it's still coming, just in a couple weeks. They probably just need the 7.0 patch to hit, which might be happening tomorrow, fingers crossed, soon TM. I am going to be leaving next week, midway through the week, for a family trip. So hopefully it will be this week, because I won't be able to cover it much if it is next week, or actually, yeah, as long as it's not next week. Let's hope. Because if it's this week, we can cover it pretty extensively. If it's like 2 weeks from now, we can probably cover it pretty extensively. If it happens next week, that would be like the worst possible time for my schedule, but hopefully they won't. Hopefully it's tomorrow, and we can start going over it throughout the rest of the week and see what on earth the big 7.0 patch brings. Anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams we went over will be in the description if you want to go and copy-paste any of them. And I'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.